Howdy everybody, this is Omar, your Audio Amigo, here today with another normal Audio Amigo review. Today we're going to be looking at the third version of what is a crowd favorite IEM. This is the third version of the Dunu Kima, the interestingly named Dunu Kima 2. Priced at $120 US. This here is a follow-up to the very popular Dunu Kima and Dunu Kima Classic. This uses the tuning from the limited edition Vernus IEM, but with a new driver that's sort of tangentially related to the driver that's in the Dunu Falcon. With how crowded the $100-ish IEM space has been, does the Kima do enough to warrant a recommendation? Let's see. But before we do that, quick disclaimer. This unit of the Kima 2 was sent to me by HiFiGo for review. I am not being paid for this review, but because I could technically turn around and sell this if I wanted, I've gone ahead and activated the paid promotion feature here on YouTube. I do these disclaimers because I believe in full transparency when there's potential bias besides my own personal tastes at play. Thank you very much to HiFiGo for sending me this set, and thank you all very much for your support. We'll kick things off with the unboxing experience, and right off the bat, I feel like Dunu is kind of spoiling us. First thing you see when you open the box is this lovely acrylic stand of their Kima 2 character. She's looking really nice there. Nice anime lady. I like that. Has nothing to do with the listening experience, but for people like me who don't mind the waifu culture that's happening in sort of chi-fi IEMs, it's a very, very nice inclusion. Besides that, though, you'll find the IEMs under that, and then beneath that, you'll find this large white case, which I'll talk about in a second, that houses all the rest of the accessories, those being a shirt clip, which y'all know I really like to see. You get a small cleaning brush. You get these IEM booties, which I think are really, really nice for full metal IEMs. You basically put one shell in each one, and it stops them from knocking into each other and scratching or maybe damaging the paint on them. That's really useful for certain IEMs. You also get the cable, which is modular. That's the 4.4 right there. That's the 3.5 right there. And you get what I would describe as a smorgasbord of ear tips. You actually get 4 varieties. We'll start with the more conventional ones. So these red core ones are what Dunu calls their vocal enhanced tips. You can see they're a little bit wider in the bore diameter than the blue balance ear tips. So you get those 2 sets in 3 different sizes. You also get a full set of Dunu's premium candy ear tips in small, medium, and large, and you get a full set of Dunu's famous S&S tips in small, medium, large, and I had to stick the extra large in there because I ran out of room in my little displays. Yeah, the case itself is massive. It has really nice soft internals and an actual usable mesh pocket. It means you can put stuff up here. That's also a soft lining. It's hard, it's nice and sturdy, it'll keep your stuff safe. This is definitely not pocketable, but it will make a good travel case. You know, you can put your IEMs plus like a dongle and some ear tips in here and make like a good everything for my IEMs in one travel case. Overall, this is the sort of accessories package I've only seen on IEMs that cost 3, 4, maybe 5 times more than this. So the fact that Dunu is giving us this on like $100-ish set is a very welcome sign. Well done, Dunu. I think this is a fantastic little starter kit for someone looking for their first IEM. So let's take a closer look at that cable. These cables have been coming on several Dunu products lately. It also comes on the Braindance, which I have a loaner set review for. Look forward to that in the sometime future. But yeah, these are very divisive cables based on the opinions that I've seen online. The bottom half of the cable has this sort of paracord style sleeving on it, and in my experience it isn't perfect. It feels nice in the hands, and they sort of have avoided the problem that the Dunu Lyre Mini has by having it be a normal 2-wire twist after the Y-split. The problem is that the top and bottom halves of these cables behave very differently to each other. The bottom half is sort of stiff and hard to manage, while the top half is very compliant and easy to deal with. It's also not microphonic, which is excellent, like I said, compared to the Dunu Lyre. Yeah, wrapping the bottom half, even if you roadie wrap it, is not really going to get it to behave. If I put it down here, you can see it kind of springs immediately. So yeah, it's just a bit annoying, I would say. I do like that they're using the Q-Lock mini system here, which is one of my preferred modular systems. Just undo it like that, and then I have the 3.5 here, so we'll swap to that. You do get 3.5 and 4.4, no 2.5 if you were hoping for that. That's sold separately. They also sell a USB C connector. But I like the fact that the connectors have the Dunu branding on them, and they have the sort of ergonomic shape to them, making it easy to pull out of players or amps. The Y-split thematically matches that. It's also got Dunu branding on it. And the chin slider is quite difficult to move, but the good news for that is it'll stay put basically no matter where you put it. The 2-pin connectors, I'm kind of bummed out that they're this sort of matte plastic rather than the metal to match the rest of the aesthetic, but I get what they're doing. It matches the top half of the cable. The ear hooks are comfortable. The Dunu logo on there is nice to see, and the very clear right and left markings are nice. Overall, I would say this isn't my favorite cable that I've ever had. The bottom half is, like I said, really just not my thing. I don't like the way it behaves or wraps at all. But, I like the fact that it's modular. I like the Q-Lock Mini system. And as far as looks go, it's really not all that terrible. I'll fix that between takes, I promise. All right, so moving on to the way these are built. These are CNC cut stainless steel shells with these sort of goldish looking nozzles threaded into the bottom shell. The nozzles feature a metal grill and what looks like some sort of small damping material on the inside. There are 2 vents on the inside of the IEM. There's one sort of here right above the dynamic driver and one here over closer to the 2-pin. I didn't have any driver flex or pressure buildup with these. Both the front and rear volume are nicely vented, so no problems there. Build quality overall is very solid. The vents do their job. There's no additional ventilation on the top or on the sides. My only complaint about the build quality for this is that the seam here seems to be a little out of alignment. You can see it's proud of the top shell just a little bit. If I run my fingernail on it, it's definitely going to catch there. I would be making a bigger deal out of this, but you don't feel that ridge at all in your ear, and it's pretty soft here on this side. My fingernail doesn't catch hardly at all. So if it had led to discomfort while wearing it, I would have knocked it some points here, but seeing as it feels overall fine in the hands and you don't feel it in the ear, I'm going to go ahead and let it slide. But yeah, other than that minor fit and finish issue, I'm overall very happy with the build. All metal is nice, they'll be nice and sturdy, they should last a good long time. So let's pull up the specifications on these. The Kima 2 is powered by a 10mm dynamic driver with a diamond-like carbon diaphragm. Being a single dynamic driver, it's fairly easy to power with an impedance and sensitivity that honestly meant it had no issues being powered by my old Sony Xperia or my CD player, so you should be just fine with these without a dongle DAC. The nozzles have a diameter of 6.15 millimeters and a length of 5.2, which puts them about average in terms of overall size. For you modders out there, the inside diameter of the nozzle is 4.75 in case you want to add a filter or remove the one that's on there and put another one on here. Being full metal, the shells come in at 10 grams each, which is a little heavy, but not out of line for full metal shells. The single driver nature also means it doesn't change frequency response when exposed to higher output impedance. So if you're looking to change the cable, the stock cable has a resistance of 0.6 ohms with my meter. So keep that number in mind if you're looking to get an aftermarket cable. Overall, I would say these are pretty typical specifications for a single dynamic driver unit. Let's go ahead and move on. But now it's time for the cool wall, and the rain has picked up a bit, so if you hear that, I apologize. I feel like metal shells like this are either cool or bland, and this one sort of lands right in between those for me. I have the standard gray version, not the limited edition green version, which doesn't come with a waifu stand, but I think looks better in terms of shells. They're shiny and green. I'll put a picture up. But yeah, those are sold out. You can't get them anymore, so this is the only one you're going to get. Honestly, this would be in bland if it hadn't been for this sort of hard edge angular design on it. I think it's a little more nuanced than just your standard, as the Council of Ladies said, golf club metal shell shape. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in cool, simply because I prefer the sort of angular, aggressive, more, cyberpunky style compared to something more rounded off and safe looking. But you're not really here for my opinions, you're here to see what the Council of Ladies thinks of the Dunu Kima 2. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Looks like we have a split verdict in terms of whether or not this is pretty. We have 2 no's, 2 yeses, and a meh. So the jury's still out on that one, let's go ahead and say. In terms of compliments, it's a much more, unanimous thing. 4-1 against giving compliments. So If you have these, I wouldn't expect getting any compliments on wearing these. One thing real quick, I did not have them choose between the limited edition green and the standard metal because, as I said, the limited edition green isn't available anymore. But finally, let's look at their thoughts. And right off the bat, someone wishes they came in different colors, and there is one you just can't get them anymore. I did think of Cybertruck while scripting this. I'm happy one of them thought about that as well. And yeah, I would say they're, sort of sculpture and high-tech looking. The thoughts seem generally positive, but I guess they're not overall pretty, so that's interesting to think about. Yeah, that's what they have to say. Let's chat about comfort for a bit. I found these super comfy, at least in my ears. The weight, again, was not an issue at all, thanks to the shape of the ear hooks. The sort of shape of the bottom shell there let me get these, both deep and shallow fit with no problems in terms of seal. I wore these for a 3 to 4 hour writing and gaming session, and I had no issues with them. The shells are relatively compact and easy to fit in my ears. More evidence of that would be my wife. She actually liked the fit on these quite a bit. These were an easy pass on the tiny ears test. She was able to wear them all day with her Spinfit super small tips. She had zero issues forming, maintaining a seal, even while laughing, talking, or eating. The weight, as I mentioned, was not an issue. The radius of the ear hooks suited her ears well. Overall, yeah, pass on the tiny ears test, pass for me. Well done, Dunu. So let's go ahead and get into how the Kima 2 sounds. The bass performance here is what I would describe as nice. I feel like it doesn't really boost or exaggerate any of the bass of the track it's playing. It sort of does what the mix asks of it, and nothing more and nothing less. The sub-bass extension from that DLC diaphragm is nice and rumbly without getting too intense. The deep rumbly bass that goes on in the background of the chorus in Inugami Korone's Doggy God's Street feels nice and rumbly, and they're audible in the mix, but they don't really stand out or dominate like they can in some bassier sets. The texture, I think, is actually quite nice. You feel the air. It's not, again, overwhelming. As far as the kick drums and bass guitar goes, the kick drum and the bass guitar in AC/DC's Shoot to Thrill sounded nice and present in the mix, not pushed forward at all, not really, overwhelming anything. They didn't lose presence, but they also didn't come super far forward. They're always there, and that's all I can really ask from the low end on, standard IEMs. I feel like this isn't lacking at all in bass, but it also doesn't spotlight bass or push it forward in any way. If you're a fan of a more neutral bass presentation, I think this is the set for you. Like I said, I like it. I tend to like neutral signatures just as much as I like bassier ones. I think this bass suits the overall sound signature of the Kima 2 very well. Seeing as the bass is relatively neutral, the mid-range gets a little bit of a focus here. I like to see that. Y'all know I'm a mids apologist. Male vocals and instruments are tonally unbothered, and they sound extremely natural on the Kima 2. The Foo Fighters' Learn to Fly plays back really cleanly on this set. All the instruments are easily separable, they sound nice and clear, there isn't any masking. The vocals are about as clean as you can get, honestly. There's no real spotlight or emphasis on male vocals. Female vocals, however, have a pretty decent focus on the Kima 2. Rocio Durcal sounds amazing in her classic Amor Eterno. Her emotional delivery, the melodic arpeggios, her sustained notes, they're all really crisp and nicely emphasized on this set without being too overcooked. The vocals are mixed to sort of be on a pedestal compared to the rest of the backing track, and the Kima 2 doesn't disappoint with the delivery. It's not the most forward vocals I've ever heard, but it's just enough to be a good highlight for this set. The mid-range on the Kima 2 is, in my opinion, about as correct sounding as it gets. There's a really nice, slight boost to female vocals, but it's not so much as to throw the rest of the range out of balance. If there is an area on the Kima 2 that gets a bit of a boost, it would be the sort of upper mids and treble area. Female vocal harmonics have, again, a pretty decent level of emphasis. I don't find them shouty or overbearing. Angela's Zenryoku Summer, with the higher-pitched vocal excursions and the operatic sustain and vibrato, I think sounded really well on this set. I feel like this track can get a bit overwhelming on some shoutier, more energetic sets, especially, in the upper mids. I think this set puts a good amount of shine on the upper vocal harmonics without making them the main thing in this tuning. Percussion harmonics are mostly similar. I say mostly because, while I don't think the vocal harmonics will be fatiguing or bothersome to anybody, the percussion harmonics on some very sensitive listeners might be a problem depending on your listening volume and your library. I personally didn't find this to be fatiguing at all, but I can see how, for those of you who might be very treble sensitive at higher volumes, especially listening to bright songs, this has the potential to get fatiguing. Again, I had no issue with this. I was able to listen to Pierre Henry's Psych Rock, no issues at my normal testing volume, even a bit higher. At really high volumes, I did start to feel the beginnings of slight fatigue, but I don't listen to that level at for long periods of time. It's just for short bursts. Overall, I don't think the treble is a problem at all. But like I said, if you're particularly treble sensitive, I would try to audition these or give these a try before you fully commit to them. In terms of technical performance, I haven't been disappointed by a DLC diaphragm dynamic driver, and this is no exception. Dave Holland's bass work in The Oracle is a great example. You have the low ringing bass notes, the subtle detail of how he's plucking each one. I think it comes through really nicely on this set, and I feel it does a great job with resolving the low-end details, even if it doesn't push them right up into your face like on some, warmer sets. On the upper end of things, the Kima, I think, also does quite well. The airy string harmonics on the higher notes of David Grisman's Doggy Mountain Breakdown come through fantastically on this set. You can hear the fingers muting the strings and the metal picks striking the banjo strings very well on this set. For a single DD, I would put the technical performance of this roughly in line, maybe a tiny bit, roughly in line with the EA500 LM. I don't think this quite reaches Moondrop Kato levels, but it's, right in line with the EA500 LM, which I think is a fantastic technical performer. When it comes to stereo separation, the Kima 2 does very well. It passed my usual Mediterranean Sundance test with flying colors, both guitarists in each ear, plenty of space, not intruding on each other, audience right in the middle, without getting too lively or without intruding on the performance. Overall, very, very well done on this set. As far as the perceived 3D soundstage goes, this set will not hold back well-mastered tracks. Ahmad Jamal's Dolphin Dance, I think, sounds beautiful and open on the Kima 2. You've got the bass in the left ear with the drums behind you and sort of to the right, the piano sort of front and center, and you can sort of feel where the notes are. Overall, I think it's a really good replay. I think the Kima 2 does very well. Very nice stereo separation and good perceived 3D soundstage on these. So, tuning on the Kima 2, to me, it comes across as a really pleasing tuning. I would personally call this sort of a mid-centric neutral. It's got warmer lower mids, but also less sub-bass when compared to what I call the neutral-ish sets, so the Hexa, the Xuannu, and the Star City 5 Pro. I feel like it's also a decent bit brighter than the warmer sets in this price range, so things like the EW300, the Keyfine Delchi, this is definitely brighter sounding. The tuning here isn't exactly unique, though. I was able to find a good amount of sets to line up for comparison. One set that I got after I scripted this review, and I didn't have time to do a full comparison, was the CVJ K, or Q, however you want to call it. Review for that is coming, and I will compare it to the Kima 2 in that review. Just know that I didn't get my CVJ K or Q in time for this review, but it'll be in the next one. We'll start with the budget sound-alike, and it was a bit unexpected, but, I actually thought this sounded really close. It's the sort of controversial KZ Krilla. With all the tuning switches set to off, I feel like the Krilla is very tonally similar to the Kima 2. The Krilla is a bit brighter at the top end, and I feel like this definitely can get more sibilant more easily than the Kima 2 can, but I still think this is a fantastic budget sound-alike. The Kima 2 is easily the better sounding set. It comes with better accessories, it's got better technical performance. The treble on here is much better executed. You get, more detail and more texture in the top end. You get more tactility in the bass. It's also built way nicer. But seeing as you can get this for $15 or less, I think it's an excellent performer for 1/8 the cost of this. Moving up in price, we come to Dunu's other IEM in this price range, the $80 Titan S2 with the same recalcitrant cable that you can see I'm already having to struggle with. This will get a review most likely next week, but for now, let's use it as a point of comparison. These two come with near identical accessories package. You get one less set of ear tips and there's no cleaning brush, but essentially everything else in terms of accessories. Well, and you don't get a waifu either. But everything else is essentially identical in terms of accessories. Listening to these two side by side, the Titan S2 came off to me like a bit more V-shaped version of the Kima 2. The bass on the Titan S2 is a bit rumblier. The mids are, a little less warm, a bit cleaner. And the vocal and percussion harmonics are definitely more prominent on the Titan S2 versus the Kima 2. If you've tried the Titan S2 and you found it fatiguing, I think the Kima 2 might be a better option for you. It's a bit more toned down in the top end without losing detail or overall resolution, in my opinion. I do feel that the driver in the Kima 2 is a bit more capable than the one in the Titan S2, but there is a $40 difference between these two, so that's to be expected. I'll talk a bit more about the overall differences in the Titan S2 review, but I personally prefer the Kima 2 between these, and I think if you have the extra $40, I feel the Kima 2 is definitely worth the upgrade. Next up, also at $80, is the CVJ Aria, specifically with the silver nozzles equipped. The Aria comes off to me as a slightly brighter Kima 2 when listening to them side by side. I feel like the sub bass on the Aria is rolled off a bit more. It's typical CVJ rolled off sub bass. And I think there's extra energy here in the treble compared to the Kima 2 with the silver nozzles. I feel like the Aria comes really close to the general feel and tonality of the Kima 2. But, if the Kima 2 is a little bit fatiguing for you, the CVJ Aria with the blue nozzles is essentially a slightly warmer Kima 2. Again, I feel like the driver in the Kima 2 is a bit more capable than the one in the Aria, and I also feel like the Kima 2 does a better job with female vocals overall compared to the Aria. If you have the money for the Kima 2, it's the one I would go for. The Aria is a bit more versatile with that warmer blue nozzle tuning as an option. This also comes with a modular cable and also comes with a really complete accessories package. I do prefer the one on the Dunu set more, but this accessories package is by no means a slouch. Lastly, I have a bit of an oldie, but a goodie. The reason I don't have the box up here is because it's discontinued, but I'll put it up here for now. The now discontinued, but still widely loved, Moondrop Starfield. Let me pull it out of the booties here, so you can see it. The Starfield released at $110 back in 2020. And this absolutely pristine-looking example was sent to me, still sealed in the box, by a friend of the channel. So if you're watching this, thank you very much. This was a great addition and a great comparison set for this review. The Kima 2's tuning, in my opinion, can be thought of as a sort of refinement of the original Starfield. They're very, very, very similar. To the point where I would say, if you like the original Starfield, I think the Kima 2 makes a solid replacement set. The Kima 2's mids are richer and more prominent than on the Starfield, and the upper mids are toned down a little bit, making for a less forward vocal presentation. I know some people thought the Starfield might be a bit shouty. That's definitely not the case on the Kima 2. I feel like the driver on the Kima 2 is a little bit better than the one on the Starfield as well. Looking at the accessories package, it's clear that the industry has moved forward in the last 4 years. I think the Kima 2 works fantastically as a upgrade / spiritual successor to the Starfield, especially if you're one of the people that was disappointed in the way that Moondrop tuned the Starfield 2. So yeah, the Kima 2 works as a fantastic option to that. To my ears, it comes across as a basically more balanced, slightly more musical, slightly less vocal forward version of the Starfield with better technical performance to boot. And they're essentially the same price. I think this was 110 when it was new, this is 120, and you get the waifu stand. So yeah, I think excellent spiritual successor there. I apologize for the jarring transition here. I forgot to film the sort of wrap-up segment of my comparison section, so we're going to do that now. The Krilla and the Starfield, I feel, are the closest overall tonal matches to the Kima 2 here on the table. The Starfield isn't available anymore, so, that's not really an option. The Krilla, like I said, is an attractive budget option if you want this kind of sound. Just be aware it's going to be a bit shriller, harsher in the treble, and overall it's not going to be as refined or detailed as the Kima 2, but, it's cheaper. That's expected. The Titan S2 here is a bit more V-shaped than the Kima 2, and is therefore a bit more exciting to listen to. It's also more forward in the vocals than the Kima 2 is, so If you can stand a bit more treble energy and you like your vocals a little more forward, the Titan S2 is an option. Finally, you have the CVJ Aria here. And these are a bit more versatile with the different nozzles. You can see I have the blue ones currently on there. That gives you a warmer tuning, but the sub-bass roll-off that CVJ has on here might not appeal to all listeners. And while you can get pretty close to the tuning with these silver nozzles here, this is still going to be a bit brighter than the Kima 2. So of all this group, honestly, personally me, I like the Kima 2 and the Starfields the most. But if I had to choose between these two, I would choose the Kima 2 just because the Starfields, a little long in the tooth, the accessories aren't as nice, and like I said, this isn't really available. So overall, I prefer the Kima. Okay, put the Starfields back in their booties. But all that being said, let's go ahead and see where the Dunu Kima 2 is going to land on the Audio Amigo Arbitrary rating scale. As I keep mentioning, because it's honestly really, really nice, the accessories package here is absolutely killer. It's essentially an all-in-one starter kit for IEMs. You get everything you would need for this and any future IEMs in the package. The build quality here is extremely solid. That one little build quirk, doesn't really affect the overall quality. It's just a little nitpick that I have. I do look at panel gaps on cars, so you know what kind of person I am. The cable isn't perfect. It's passable, and the fact that it's modular is nice. The sound is what I would describe as a good, safe, neutral-ish tuning for essentially all genres and styles. This might be a little bit bright for some folks, but like I said, I don't find it that way. I don't think it's fatiguing at all. And the bass, I think, is just the right amount of responsive and textured to not be boring to my ears. Overall, I would describe this as nice, smooth, inoffensive, a really nice mid-centric neutral tuning that I think is actually really good for people who are new to the hobby. All of that is going to add up to a "this is brilliant" score from me. I really wish the stock cable was a different design. I really just don't like it. I personally wish the sub-bass had a bit more presence to it. I'm missing some of that rumbliness in some of my EDM tracks. And that's just a me thing. Some people are still going to love this. I do think this is a fantastic all-rounder set. I think this will do what the mix is asking for. The tuning is, very good for that. I think it will do a fantastic job as a sort of daily driver, neutral-ish set for basically anything. So, time for the recommendation. As I said, Dunu Kima 2. Fantastic all-rounder set. Neutral-ish tuning, great for beginners. That being said, this is not for bass heads. You'll find this very disappointing in terms of bass. It also isn't for treble heads. It doesn't have the level of airiness or top-end, sparkliness that some treble heads really like. This is too neutral to appeal to either of those groups. The mids have body to them. So if you're the type of person that prefers the lean, clean mids experience, this set might not be for you. All of that being said, if you're like me and you like, a mid-centric set and you want something neutral that has enough of a focus on female vocals to make them feel special, I think this set is for you. I'll also say, if you've been holding on to your Starfield and it's starting to show its age, paint chips and whatnot, the Kima 2, with its slightly warmer tonality, modular cable, better driver, better overall accessory set, I think would make a fantastic replacement for it at essentially the same price you played back in the day. It'll even be a slight upgrade. Finally, I don't think $120 is the best price point for beginners looking to get into IEMs. I would, suggest something more in the $20 range. But there are people who come into the hobby and say, I don't want something cheap. I want something well built. I want something nice and more expensive. They come in, they're like, okay, what can I get for $100? If you have around $100 and you're looking to get your first IEM, I think this, with all of the accessories that it provides, is a fantastic starter set, provided you have the budget to get into the hobby at that price range. And that's going to do it for the Dunu Kima 2 review. It's a nice set. I think it's a good blend of performance, value, sort of all-in accessories, and build quality. It's a nice set. I get the sort of hype that people have for it. I can see why a lot of people say they really like it. Thank you very, very much to HiFiGo for sending this out for review. I really appreciate it. But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate all your support. We may or may not have hit 3,000 subscribers when I upload this. We'll see, but it's in the very, very near future. I do finally have some plans for some subscriber milestones coming up, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, thank you all so much for your support. This has been Omar with Audio Amigo Reviews. I'll catch y'all next time.